Just 2 games left in the regular season for your Philadelphia Eagles. Today they play host to the Dallas Cowboys before taking on the New York Giants to round things out. Your Eagles come into today's game at 12-3 on the season. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings right now sit at 13-2. So the Eagles have to play some catch-up over the next 2 weeks if they still want that number 1 seed. All they can do, though, is handle their own business and look nowhere else. And right now, when they look at a team coming off their first loss in 10 weeks. They also look at a game after that Commanders loss where they lost it in the final seconds of that game. And they also will go into this venture in the final 2 games of the season, at least today, without Jalen Hurts as their starting quarterback. Kenny Pickett gets the call. Today on the show, we'll, of course, debate whether or not that's the right one. Him versus Tanner McKee. That's been a hot-button issue for people on all social media platforms. We'll touch on that. And also what we need to see from this Eagles offense without Jalen Hurts at the helm. Welcome into the betPARX Pregame show presented by Lehocky. My name is Marc Farzetta. Right here is Eagles Hall of Famer Seth Joyner and veteran Eagles reporter Derrick Gunn. Seth, you weren't quiet about it last week. You thought Tanner McKee should get more reps. He should get reps. He should be in the game. When you break it down and assess Kenny Pickett, before we tackle the Tanner McKee issue, what did you see last week from Kenny Pickett that gives you encouragement for today? And what did you see that he needs to improve on coming into today?
Well, listen, I felt like the Eagles needed to pass the football last week, and I think if you go back over time, you will see that, even in training camp, I thought that Tanner McKee was a much better passer of the football, at least in preseason, than Kenny Pickett. But the truth of the matter is, Kenny Pickett has experience as a starter. Tanner McKee has never started a game in the National Football League, not one single regular season game. So I understand that. What I'm encouraged about with Kenny Pickett is early in the game last week, he played extremely well. I thought in the first half, called into duty, especially that first touchdown drive. He was 3 for 3 on that drive, the 4-yard touchdown to A.J. Brown. What concerns me is how he played in the second half. I had to go back, watch the game, recalculate the stats, factor in the 3 sacks that he had in the second half, which negated 25 yards off of his, 143, which brought him down to 118. But he was 6 for 13 for 34 yards in the second half of last week's game. That I just, when I looked at that, I was absolutely blown away by those numbers. And everyone last week wanted to talk about what a great job he did. And in a lot of ways, he did play well. But they only had six points converted off the last 4 turnovers. That speaks to the quarterback. They couldn't maintain possession of the football. They were 3 for 16 on third down on the entire day. They were 1 for 9 in the second half. Saquon Barkley had 16 carries for 24 yards. See, to me, that's reflective of the quarterback and how important Jalen is to the offense. Now, I understand the difficulty of taking a quarterback, he hadn't had no practice time or anything. You throw him in the mix, but that's why he's the backup. At the other end of the spectrum, now he's had a full week of practice. The coaches have had an opportunity to kind of figure out what they want to do with him, figure out what he does best, what he likes to do. If the RPO game and the read option game is still a part of the offense today, I think that somehow, some way, Kenny's going to have to run the football. Whether he wants to run it or not, he's going to have to do it to just make the defense play honestly. So, because the game plan is going to be the same. They're going to stack the box. They're going to try to take Saquon away, which means that he's probably going to have to throw the ball in those stacked box situations. The quick slants, the stop routes and things like that. I think that he can get that done. He's going to have to get the ball out of his hands quick, because if they can negate and keep the Eagles behind the sticks on first down, then they're going to come after him on second and third down, the same way that the Washington Commanders did last week. So let's see. I'm curious to see how it all pans out. The Eagles have got to figure out their running game today. That's 1.6 yards to carry for Saquon in the second half. I don't think he's ever had, those types of numbers. And And all of this versus, the number 25 ranked defense going into last week, the Washington Commanders, they were giving up 132 yards a game. Now, he got all those yards, 123 yards in the first half, but in order for this offense to click the way that it needs to click, I'm curious to see how they reshaped and how they redefine what this offense is going to look like. So I'm going to be really interested to see what the game plan is for Kenny Pickett today.
Mm-hmm. Gunnar, you want to add to that when it comes to Jalen Hurts and the transition here with Kenny Pickett?
You can't put a premium on what Jalen Hurts means to this offense because he's such a dual threat. Now, Kenny Pickett isn't that threat, but Kenny Pickett can't take off and run. And like Seth says, he's going to have to step up and run a few times just to back that Dallas defense off because I guarantee you they're coming after him today. As I said to Seth when we were sitting back in the green room, if I'm the Eagles and you know for a fact that Jalen wasn't going to play by Tuesday, you string it out as long as you can with this concussion protocol, but they know early in the week. I'm practicing all week long. Kenny, you've got to get the ball out of your hands it's like being a ballerina. 1, 2, 3, throw. 1, 2, 3, throw. You can't hold the ball back there because Dallas has 13 interceptions, okay? So they've been pretty good at taking away the ball this year. The biggest problem is they give up 136 yards on the ground rushing. You're going to have to force feed Saquon to try to test that interior. Now, if Dallas does what Washington does and stack the box, it's in Kenny Pickett's hands. And people keep clamoring for Tanner McKee. I don't want to see him on the football field. I mean, he looked good in preseason games, but he hasn't played in a meaningful game. You're trying to close out the division, number one. You're trying to secure that number 2 seed, number 2. You've got to do everything possible to play mistake-free football against a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who, oh, by the way, have won 4 of their last 5 now. Cooper Rush is playing a lot better brand of football now that he's settled in. The last 5 games, he has 9 touchdown passes, only 1 interception. They have 2 quality wins over the 4 of the last 5. They beat Washington and they beat Tampa. So Dallas is playing better. I'm not saying Dallas is going to come in here and beat his Eagles team. No. Dallas wants to play the role of a spoiler. Eagles have a lot more to play for at this time. Close out this division right here, right now. But I think this game is going to be a lot closer than it should be because of the quarterback situation.
Certainly, they're playing a lot better football. I have to ask you this specifically, though, about Jalen Hurts, Gunnar. It was weird last week. He goes down, tries to give the thumbs up to the official, ends up being taken out of the game, goes in the blue tent, tries to get back on the field, puts his helmet on. They escort him back. And then for, 2.5 quarters, we never heard about whether or not Jalen Hurts was going to be coming back into the game. Then throughout the week, we're not told anything on Jalen Hurts. The Eagles, more so their actions, more so than anything, told us about the status of Jalen Hurts as opposed to anyone physically telling us anything. They go out and they sign Ian Book. You know that Kenny Pickett has the first-team reps at practice. So, with all that being said, is this the only week we're going to have to worry about Jalen Hurts not playing for the Eagles? Yeah. How concerned should we be with this concussion?
This will be the only week. But the thing is, let's say they don't secure the division today, you've got to play your regulars next week in a meaningless game against the Giants. Now, obviously, Saquon gets a chance to break their record depending on what he does today against the Dallas Cowboys. But that last game, you should be resting guys.
Right, but it wouldn't be meaningless if they lost.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to rest guys that last game. You don't want your frontline guys out there. Now, I know the offensive linemen have said if we're close 100, 110, 115 yards away from that record, we want to be out there with Saquon because that's as important to the offensive line and to the organization as it is to that individual to achieve that record. But you don't want to put your people in harm's way. You will be playing against a Giants team that's going nowhere. A bunch of guys are looking over their shoulders because they know they could get pink slips, and they're playing for jobs. They're playing to put tape together for their agents to send out to other people. That means they're going to be hitting a little harder, doing a little things a little bit more. Do you want your frontline guys out there being subjected to possibly getting injured in a meaningless game? You don't play the game scared, but you have to play the game smart.
I'm with you 100%. And Gunnar, you put it beautifully when it came to the idea of why Kenny Pickett's getting the start today and why Tanner McKee is not. Now, let me just say this, because I know Tanner McKee has all of a sudden developed a fan club over the last week. I have confidence that if he did get his start or if he did get reps in this game, and I'm not rooting for it by any means, he certainly passed the test that the preseason's supposed to be for any professional quarterback. I would like to see him get an opportunity, but more so in a game that would, in fact, be meaningless. The reason you're going with Kenny Pickett is this is a guy that today will play his 30th NFL game. This is a guy that is 4 games over 500 as a starter in the NFL. And this is a game that certainly means something to the Eagles where they could lock up the division. When you look at it from that perspective, there's still going to be pressure on Kenny Pickett both to actually go out there and perform well and go out there and win to lock it up so that Jalen can rest next week, so that maybe Saquon Barkley can rest next week if there's nothing to play for. So when I look at it, I think there's regular pressure of a guy making his first start with a new franchise, albeit week 17. And I also look at it as the pressure of a guy going out there who needs to win this football game. How much more of a challenge is that for Kenny Pickett?
Listen, I mean, it's football. And, it's next man up mentality. If they made the decision that Jalen wasn't going, he's the number 2 guy, he's going to get the start. He's just got to be ready to step in and play. I know he was very disappointed last week that they couldn't get the job done, that they couldn't get the win. It was something that was very important to him. Well, guess what? You got another opportunity, not only to show the Eagles, but prove to yourself and your teammates that you can get the job done today.
All right, I want to ask both of this before we hit our first break. What do you need to see from Kenny Pickett? What do you need to see from Kellen Moore with this offense with Kenny Pickett under center?
I want to see him run the offense at status quo. Because let's say, heaven forbid, Jalen gets hurt in the playoff game. Another concussion in a playoff game. Once you've had one, you're more susceptible to a second one. I want to see them run the offense with efficiency. I want to see them control the clock. I want to see Kenny hitting his targets in stride. I want to see a rhythm offense from Kenny Pickett that gives me the confidence of knowing that if Jalen went down, that he can get the job done in a crucial situation. Now, obviously, the playoffs, they always talk about preseason is one thing, regular season is another thing, and when it comes to the playoff, that's a whole nother level because you're one and done. But I want to feel confident going into the playoffs that if something would happen to Jalen, that Kenny Pickett steps under center. I feel pretty good about him being able to run this offense with efficiency and not turning the ball over.
See, my mind can't even go there, because I think that Jalen, if he could go back and do that play all over again, he would have slid 5 yards shorter. Those couple of extra yards, he had already had the first down. They were already in the red zone. Just do the baseball slide, get down, so them guys can't hit you like that. I think that's going to be his approach from this point moving forward. That you pick your spots where you go head first and where you actually slide. What I want to see, has more to do with Kellen Moore than it necessarily does Kenny Pickett. I think that Kenny Pickett can be efficient, and that's all we need him to be today is just be efficient. I'm curious to see how they choose to utilize him. I want to see him. Listen, if you're going to play him, I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. The problem with the run game when you don't have a quarterback who's a run option is that when you line up in shotgun and you line up right or left of the quarterback, if I line up on the right side, the running back has to get the ball going to his left, okay? The only other play that you have out of that set is a quick toss, to the weak side potentially, if he's lined up weak. And a lot of times, that play doesn't work because if you got a defensive end that's doing his job, he's going to be all over that. So 9 times out of 10, that ball's got to go across the formation, okay? That's a dead giveaway for any offense if the quarterback is not a run option. Now, I need to see Kenny Pickett, in more under center stuff. Put him under center. Let him hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley out the dot position. Get him in some more pistol. Because if Kenny's not gonna run the ball, it makes little sense to me to have him to be in shotgun with the back offset right or left. Because you're predetermining where you got to run the ball. You either running it right up the middle or you running across the formation. And most teams in that scenario, they're going to slant their line to the side that you want to go. They want to cut the field off and make you cut back. So I just, like I said, this has more to do for me. I want to see what it is, how it is that Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni are going to deploy Kenny Pickett today and how they plan on using him, more than I'm worried about whether Kenny Pickett can be efficient enough to get the job done.
I hear what you're saying about putting him under center, but in this case, because we all anticipate Dallas coming after him, I want to see him in the shotgun more so, which gives him that additional 5 to 7 yards to see what's coming at him to deliver the ball. I don't want to see him backpedaling with the rush coming down because he's not as elusive as a Jalen. And that's not a knock again, Kenny.
Right.
It's just that just his makeup. I don't want to see him backpedaling. I want to see him already set, looking at the situation, seeing where the hot read is, seeing where the guy's coming on the blitz, to be able to deliver the ball, have that one extra second, as you know, Seth, can be a big difference between success and failure, especially in the passing game.
Well, my point is not for him to live under center.
Right.
Okay? They've got to mix it in. Now, once you get the running game going and you show a variety of things, okay, now you can get to that. On first down, the Dallas Cowboys are going to anticipate that the Eagles are going to run the ball, put him under center.
And go play action.
Run it or go play action. Yeah. Then you get to your pistol, and then you get to, your shotgun stuff. But to just come out and live strictly in shotgun with Kenny Pickett today, it makes no sense because I'm telling you right now, when he's in shotgun, the run game out of the shotgun is going to be so much more difficult. Don't be surprised. Like we know that Dallas is going to load the box.
Yep.
Don't be surprised that if they show too high safety, okay, especially when they're in shotgun and they walk that safety down late. I mean, that would be my mode of operation. I want to give you one look and make you think I'm doing something else. And right before you snap the ball, I want to rotate into something else and get the extra guy down in the box. So, I mean, it's going to be a chess match. It's always been a chess match, but I think it's a bigger chess match today because Kenny is not a guy that's going to run the ball unless they're going to implement his legs today. We'll have to see.
All right, when we come back, we got to look at the Eagles' depth chart because Jalen Hurts is not the only regular starter that won't be starting today, unfortunately. We'll take a look at that and how the Dallas Cowboys have, in fact, hate to admit it, been playing much better football since the Eagles saw them all those weeks ago. That's when we return to the betPARX pregame show presented by Lehocky. Parx Casino in Ben Salem, just 20 minutes north of Center City, Philadelphia.
It's happening again. Those missed tackles are starting to stack up. Your friends pleading with players who can't hear them. Sweating it out week after week. But not you. Why? Because whether they score or not, there's always another way to win on the betPARX app. New casino users score up to $1,000 bonus back in their first 24 hours.
At Lehocky Giordano, we understand the impact an injury can have on your life. Our experienced attorneys have recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we know we can do the same for you. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured at work, give Lehocky a call.
Sell your car to us, no hassle, no fuss. DavisBuysCars.com.
Did you know that Davis Honda will pay top dollar for your car? Go to DavisBuysCars.com and get an instant quote on your vehicle. We'll make the purchase as easy as possible and put cash in your hand faster than you can say DavisBuysCars.com.
Sell your car to us, no hassle, no fuss. DavisBuysCars.com. It's the most wonderful time with the kids jingle. Be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful.
Whether your phone's broken or old, we've got you. With Verizon, anyone can trade in any phone, any condition. And get iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence on us. And iPad and Apple Watch Series 10, all three on us. That's up to $2,000 in value, only on Verizon.
Hello?
This upcoming segment is brought to you by betPARX. And welcome back to the betPARX pregame show presented by Lehocky. Marc Farzetta along with Eagles Hall of Famer Seth Joyner and veteran Eagles reporter Mr. Derrick Gunn.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes,
Sir,
Mr.
Esquire.
Owe you money or something? What the world's going on here, man?
I was so nervous when I saw your sports code. I thought it matched my tie. It did not, fortunately. We might have to switch ties. We got some bad news before the inactives came out. Shortly before that, we learned that a man that was limited at practice throughout the week, and that was Nakobe Dean, is not going to be active for the game. So I don't know if that means Jeremiah Trotter Jr. will get his opportunity. I don't know if that means Dallas Grant will get an opportunity to step up there. But it looks like the Eagles will not just be without their starting quarterback, they'll also be without one of their starting inside linebackers in Nakobe Dean. What does this mean for Vic Fangio's defense. What do you like to see? What would you like to see in this game?
You know, for a team that tries to beat Corey, they don't do a really good job. You know, earlier in the week, I think it was Zach Bond said that he's going to be wearing the green dot this week. And when asked why, his explanation, it kind of caught him off guard. You know, well, why do you think you're going to be wearing the green dot? And he was like, well, you know, we ran a little more dime, and, you know, I'm the lone linebacker in and dime. I think we're going to be running more dime. You know, he kind of tried to walk it back. He probably shouldn't have said anything at all, you know. But I think we knew early in the week that Nakobe Dean wasn't going to play. I think Oren Burks will be the guy that steps in, you know, today. You know, listen, we all want to see, you know, Trot Jr. play. But Vic Fangio is an experienced, you know, defense coordinator. He likes experienced players. I get it. We got some young guys that's playing this year, but those guys are the exception when you drafted in the first and the second round and you play the way those guys have played. But I think Oren Burks is the logical, you know, next guy up, and we'll kind of see how it goes. You know, if it doesn't go well, then I would look potentially for Trot Jr. to get in and get some playing time today.
All right, when you look at this injury here from Nakobe Dean, it's listed as an abdominal injury. Gunner, whenever I see the abdomen, whenever I see that, I always think about obliques. I think about whether or not there's anything that would be prolonged in this scenario. What do you know about it?
Basically, it's day-to-day, week-to-week. You know, when you talk about an abdomen injury, it's like the sprained ankle. It's like anything else. It feels good one day, and all of a sudden you twist, turn, and you move a certain way, and all of a sudden you re-aggravate it. So it's something that they're going to guard closely. You know, luckily for them, these last two games of the season are against teams like Dallas and the Giants, and they still have enough depth and enough personnel around a starter who's out to cover certain deficiencies to get the job done. We're not talking about facing prolific teams these last 2 weeks over the span of 8 days. So with Jalen out, with Nakobe Dean out, you still have the personnel to beat the likes of these two teams you're facing.
All right, I'm all for it. As I mentioned before the break, we're looking at a Dallas Cowboys team that has been playing much better football. Gunner, you referenced 26 points per game in their 4 wins. They've won 4 out of the last 5. In each one of those 5 games, the Dallas Cowboys have averaged over 20 points a game in those 5 games. Again, 4-1 in those last 5 games. And Cooper Rush has been playing some of the best football of his career. For only the second time in his career, he's able to post passer ratings north of 100 in back-to-back games. The last time he did that was all the way back in 2021. Today, he'll be without CeeDee Lamb for the rest of the season. They'll be without CeeDee Lamb. But, Seth, when you look at Cooper Rush and what he's been able to do and that entire Cowboys offense, why have they been able to click so much better recently?
CeeDee Lamb. He trusts CeeDee Lamb, and he targets CeeDee Lamb in the fashion that we target A.J. Brown here in Philadelphia. And without CeeDee Lamb, the question now has to be, who are you going to? You know, the only 2 guys that come to mind is, you know, Jake Ferguson, the tight end, and Brandon Cooks. So, I mean, it's just going to be interesting where he decides to go with the football. I would imagine he's going to be looking more to distributing the ball across the board to everybody, you know. But when you lose a guy like CeeDee Lamb, there are times when CeeDee Lamb is covered pretty damn well, and he knows that if he throws up a 50-50 ball, the CD is going to go get that ball or knock it down. But you don't have that. He's not going to have that playmaker today. So it's just going to be really interesting to see, you know, what the plan is when it comes to throwing the football, because they can't run it at all. Listen, they play better, but this offense still is pretty darn horrific. You know, they rank 10 or above, and most of them are 16 and above, except for one category. That's in passing. You know, they're 10th in the NFL in passing, 232 yards per game. Other than that, total offense, they're 16. Points, they're 19. Third down conversion, they're 25th. Red zone, they're 27th. And running the football, they're 28th at 95 yards per game. So this offense is going to have to lean on a passing game that's missing CeeDee Lamb and a quarterback who's in a backup situation that really leaned on this guy over the last 4 weeks. And so where does he go? And how do the Eagles affect his ability to even try to get the ball to the other guys and be able to shut it down? I would say the Eagles are going to come out. and they're going to try to run the football. I mean, the Cowboys are going to come out. They're going to try to establish the run game somehow, some way. And I think the tempo of this game is going to be determined by the Eagles' ability to shut the run down early and be able to get an early lead and put them in a situation where the ball now is in Cooper Rush's hand, and he's got to kind of figure out, okay, who do I go to? Now that's going to give the Rush a chance, to get home and create some pressure, to create, some more turnovers.
All right, now that's a perfect segue for our behind enemy line segment, because one of the people I know Derrick Gunn's going to be looking at in this contest is a man that will be running that football for the Dallas Cowboys today and will most likely be a staple of what their offense is going to bring to the table. Who are you looking at, Gunner, when it comes to behind enemy lines, brought to you by Verizon?
Well, it's interesting that the Dallas Cowboys this past offseason felt that Tony Pollard, who was a hard runner, the best runner, was expendable and let him go to the Tennessee Titans. So in comes this kid, Rico Dowdle. Now, his first 3 years in the league, he was basically a role player. This year, he's stepped up. He's 97 yards away from his first ever 1,000-yard season. He's a hard runner. There's no question about that. Keeps the legs churning. He's everything that you want in a running back. He's got 190 carries. He's averaging almost 5 yards a carry, but he only has one rushing touchdown this season. Dallas is going to try to feed him. I don't see Dallas being able to run the football effectively against this Eagles defensive front. I think they'll have a measure of success the first quarter. And then the Eagles defense, Fangio and his crew will make the necessary adjustments and shut that run game down, that putrid Dallas run game down, and force Cooper Rush to throw the football a lot more than he wants to. But Rico Dowdle doesn't get a lot of notoriety. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott is past his prime. But Rico Dowdle is a guy to keep an eye on in this game because he's such a tough between the tackles type runner.
All right. The guy that I know you're going to be looking at, Seth, is a guy that is going to be a huge target for Cooper Rush today. You already touched on him a little bit, but who are you looking at for the Dallas Cowboys today?
I mean, you're right. I already touched on him. He's the premier guy that I would have to think that the majority of the touches are going to go to, Jake Ferguson. Who else do they have? Brandon Cooks is just fresh off of, IR maybe 2-3 weeks ago. He doesn't have a whole bunch of targets, but he is, a pretty decent tight end at the end of the day. And without there being a lot of other options, for Cooper Rush in this situation, I just feel like this is one of those situations where they're going to have to target him, and the Eagles are going to have to try to take him away as early as possible.
They love that take here. We're getting a fire warning right there. It's a piping hot take on Jake Ferguson. One of the things you have to also mention is you also look at the fact that a couple years ago, Dalton Schultz was their premier tight end. They easily passed on him to look at Jake Ferguson as their new next man up as the tight end for the Dallas Cowboys, obviously. I'm going to be looking at the defensive side of things, because when I look at this game, the only thing, Parsons. This is a guy that can still get after the quarterback. I know we always talk about Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata being able to handle their business and do their job. But this is an opportunity here where Micah Parsons, after everything that came up throughout the last week about bleep Philly, I'm going to step up against Philly, I'm going to do my job against Philly, this is something very interesting that I see happening with Micah Parsons, looking to make good on his promise to take it to the Philadelphia Eagles. The only concern I have has to do with their defense, and that comes with Micah Parsons. All right, when we come back, we're going to take a look at what the Eagles need to do in this game, offensively speaking, especially with history knocking on the door for Saquon Barkley. The betPARX Sportsbook here at Parx Casino, just 20 minutes north of Center City, Philadelphia. Taking a game, win some cash, and do it all in luxury.
And the next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital bed.
Has a friend ever told you a story about an accident and someone says,
You should probably sue them.
forget your friend. Call Lehocky Giordano.
We're an injury law firm that's recovered billions of dollars for our clients.
And with our vast network of attorneys throughout the country, we know we can do the same for you.
So if you've been injured in an accident, give Lehocky a call.
One conversation is all it takes, and you won't pay a dime until we win.
Most people don't know how to get the care they need. The experts at Stay at Home Care can help. Before choosing a caregiver or family member for your care, you need to apply for the home care program. The application process can be complicated. Stay at Home Care can help you navigate through every step. Once approved, your caregiver or family member will receive guaranteed weekly pay, a variety of medical benefits options, paid holidays, paid vacation, and overtime pay. Call Stay at Home Care, here to help. every step of the way.
This is Parks. Parks, Pennsylvania's #1 casino experience. This is how you win.
Since 1893, Weber Display and Packaging has been Pennsylvania's leading manufacturer of corrugated packaging and displays. We're family owned with 4 Philadelphia locations, 2 converting facilities, a warehouse, and a fulfillment center. Designed through delivery, we exceed customer needs. Weber Display and Packaging. Our core values drive everything we do. Come join our team.
Gentlemen, are you ready for a wardrobe update? Introducing Divine Nine's Custom Menswear, your clothier for truly unique, custom-made threads. With Divine Nine, you can design your own one-of-a-kind suit, jacket, slacks, shirts, golf pants, and shorts, perfectly handcrafted by our skilled artisans who will bring your vision to life. Prepare to stand out from the crowd with Divine Nine's Custom Clothier, official clothier of Seth Joyner. Custom clothing made for you.
This upcoming segment is brought to you by Lehocky. Welcome back to the betPARX pregame show presented by Lehocky from Parx Casino, just 20 minutes north of Center City, Philadelphia. First and foremost, let's talk about the history, gentlemen. I know we all want to see Saquon Barkley be able to break Eric Dickerson's 40-year-old record for most rushing yards in a single season at 21.05. Right now, Saquon Barkley is at 1,838 yards on the season. He needs to average 134 yards over the next 2 games, assuming he plays in the next 2 games, in order to break that record. Right out of the gate, let me ask you, Seth, do you see him breaking that record? If you had to call it, will he break the record?
You know, if I'm coaching this football team, I'm going to allow them to go for the record, no matter what the circumstances are, because it's a 40-year-old record. Very rarely do you have an opportunity to affect the history of the game in this manner. And for him to be that close, you know, I as an organization, you know, I would want that for him, and I would want that for the offensive line. Now, I hear all the, you know, all the talk. People are saying they need to rest him. They need to be wary about injuries, you know, this, that, and the other. The most important thing is the Super Bowl run. The most important thing isn't him getting a record. Football players play football. You know, that's always been my stance. I know this is the new age and how we look at the game and how we protect players, load management, and all that nonsense. But just call me old school, the old man screaming on his lawn, whatever you want to call it. Football players want to play football, you know, and football players don't worry about injuries because injuries can happen at any time. How many times have we not played our players in the preseason, and yet we get to week 1 or week 2, and we get 2 or 3 guys that's injured in week 1 or week 2? So you spared them training camp, but you didn't spare them. You can't spare them when the game happens. What's going to happen is going to happen. So you just play. And if you're playing all out, doing, you know, playing with maximum effort, you're a lot less likely to get injured than if you're loafing and you're half-assing it out there on the football field. So let them play. You know, my stance always has been, I got 17 weeks to play football, and I got 35 weeks to rest, okay? So I can get well, I can heal up, I can rest up. All of those things, I can do those things, you know, in the off season. As far as rest is concerned, you're talking about young men. We're not talking about guys my age. You're talking about guys that are, you know, in their 20s, maybe one guy in his early 30s or something like that. But, you know, I just don't subscribe to that. You know, my thing is, hey, listen, I'll rest when I'm old and sleep when I'm dead.
All right. With that being said, real quick, do you think he breaks it though?
I think if they allow him to play, then he breaks it.
Okay.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, against these 2 teams, 100% he breaks it. I would love to see him break it today, not because of the rest factor, but I personally know Eric Dickerson, and he's been chirping. And he's been talking about, he's got 17 games, but he forgot that the record that he broke, OJ only had 14 games to do it. You don't want to talk about that. So I don't want to hear him chirping in the offseason about, he broke the record, but he got the extra game. So I hope he knocks it out the park today. So at least when I see him, I can put the gag on him and tell him to be quiet.
270 yards today against the Cowboys. Does he break the record, Derrick Gunn?
If the Cowboys hold him under 100 yards rushing today, I say no, because they're not going to run him that much in the last game of the season against the Giants. Now, if he puts up $150 or $160 on the Cowboys today, then I sit down and have a long discussion. It's a week-long discussion with Saquon. I'm talking about the coaching staff, with Saquon, with the offensive line, and obviously the management up top is going to chirp in as well. Jeffrey Lurie, Howard Roseman want to chirp in as well about the significance of the record and do we put our player in harm's way. And as Seth said, and I've said many times, you play the game scared, that's when you get hurt. So you can't play the game scared. So I think it's going to be a collective discussion if he puts up big numbers today. But if Dallas holds him to around 100 yards, 105 yards rushing, I don't think he gets the record next week against the Giants.
All right, what would make you happier, both for Saquon's record and then also Kenny Pickett helping this Eagles team hopefully win this football game today? What would make you feel better on the first play of the game? First play of the game is a play-action pass slant to A.J. Brown. First play of the game is just the ball in the belly of Saquon Barkley. He runs with it. Or Kenny Pickett pulls that ball from the mesh point and takes off himself. What would make you feel better about the game plan for today, both with Saquon Barkley, both with Kenny Pickett? What would make you feel better, the play action, the quarterback keeper, or Saquon taking it and running it?
I would say hand the ball off to Saquon and let him bust one off tackle for about 70 yards and just set the tone for what's to come. And that would take, if he does that, that'll take a lot of heat off Kenny Pickett for the rest of that game.
All right, you go for Saquon carrying that football. What do you look for, Seth?
I want him to fake it, pull it, and A.J. to run a slant and go right out the gate. Because you know that the cornerback's going to be all over it. He's going to try to jump in front of it, and steal the ball, run the slant and go. Kenny Pickett hits him for a touchdown out the gate. Now that changed the whole complexion about how Dallas thinks about, playing football today. Because you just can't load the box on first down every single down, because this is what might happen. So you send a message. Listen, sometimes you set the pass game up through the run game, but you can also do it the reverse. You can set the run game up through the pass. And the run game struggled mightily, against a stacked box. They're going to see it again today. So Kenny's got to prove that, I can make you get out of that, by taking advantage of my matchups on the outside off a play-action pass. When I freeze the safety and I freeze the linebackers, I can take shots down the field.
All right. Now, overall, looking at this Eagles offense, one of the things that really bothered me about last week's game is guys that you're used to seeing step up and play. And there's no better example in the unfortunate circumstance than what happened with Devontae Smith last week. I still love the ball going to Devontae Smith, just like I love it going to A.J. Brown. But Devontae Smith catches that ball 99 times out of 100. That was an instance where if Kenny Pickett completes that pass and he catches it, then you're talking about the game being over, and we're talking about, hey, Kenny Pickett, you know what he did? He played well enough to win. Thrown into the fire, week 16, thrown into the fire, and he plays well enough to win. What do you need to see from A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and also hopefully Grant Calcaterra, because the tight end was not even targeted last week? What do you need to see as far as that game plan goes to make sure everybody's getting involved and that Kenny Pickett has the best opportunity to make sure he's spreading that football around?
Diversity. I want the ball spread around. I don't want him to have to hone in on one target, because eventually the opposition will try to take away that one target. And we obviously know that he feels better throwing the ball to A.J. than he does with anybody else on that offense. Now, that ball he put in Devontae Smith's hands was the perfect throw. And Devontae, I love how he stood up at his locker after the game. He said, I'm not going to dwell on this. He said, I dropped the ball. He said, that's on me. He goes, 99 out of 100. Like you said, I catch that ball. So I love the way he's taking ownership in that, And he said, I'm not going to lose any sleep over this. It happens. You're human. If the opportunity arises, he'll go back to Devontae again. I do want to see them get the tight end more involved. I was just shocked when we talked about it after the game last week. The tight end position, that's the first time this season, didn't get one target? How's that possible? And I understand Kenny may not have that kind of relationship yet with the tight end, but I guarantee you the tight ends were open in that game last week. And you didn't hit the tight end one time. So you can bet your bottom dollar Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni says, hey, look, man, here's Calcaterra. watch for him. Look for him. He's going to be open. There's not many linebackers that can stay with Calcaterra in the National Football League. You got to get this man involved in the game. You get him involved in the game, it opens up everything else in this offense.
You want to know something, man? As I watched that game and I thought back about it last week, there was only 2 balls that Kenny Pickett threw inside the hash marks. That was the interception and that ball that Devontae dropped. So Dallas is going to be looking at that. There are going to be some opportunities in the middle of the field if he's willing to get in his drop and take those balls across the middle. Because I promise you, they're going to be pressing and pushing on the outside. They're going to be trying to figure out a way to not allow A.J. Brown on the outside, outside the numbers to do what he did. Because a lot of those balls went outside the numbers to A.J. Brown. 15 targets, I believe it was last week. And the majority of them were outside the numbers. At the end of the day, you're going to have to take advantage of, because teams are watching that kind of stuff. As a player and during the week of studying film, I watch that kind of stuff. Okay, where does the quarterback like to throw the ball? Where within the offensive scheme do they like to throw the ball? A lot of what they do is outside. Even their bootlegs, and their misdirection stuff, they like to throw the ball outside. They do not like to throw the ball over the middle of the field for whatever reason. And it's not because Jalen can't throw it over the middle of the field. We've seen him do it multiple times. But they've got to figure out a way to capitalize on that part of the field to make the defense play honest. Or they're just going to squeeze the sidelines and make it very difficult. Cornerbacks are going to be jumping routes. So double moves are going to be of a premium, especially when you got you got single high safeties. It's just going to be interesting to see, again, how they deploy him and how they use him and what they've set up for him to be successful in this game today.
Now, when you look at the defensive side of things for the Eagles tonight, one of the things I found very interesting over the last couple of weeks, Jalen Carter, second-year player, was referred to as a leader. He was asked the question, as a leader on this defense, what do you need to do this, that? And his eyebrows raised, and he said, oh, look at that, a leader already, okay. But the fact of the matter is that's exactly what he is. My only concern, and it's not just Chauncey Gardner-Johnson getting thrown out of a game, it's more of a reputation thing. Technically, yes, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson got 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties and was thrown out of the game. 1 unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, unfortunately, went at Jalen Carter. Are we starting to look at a reputation being established now by Jalen Carter for as talented as he is, as great as he is, as in control of every single matchup that he seems to have, as much in control as he is? What are we concerned about, if anything, when it comes to what's between the ears and his mental approach to the game? Are referees now looking at him saying, if he does something that looks bad, it probably is, let me throw the flag?
I think it's going to get to a point. I don't think it's arrived at that point yet, but if he continues on his current course, I think it's going to get to a point where refs are going to be looking specifically at him. Here's the reason why. Here's what I do know. He does have a quick trigger. And there are people on the sideline that are there to calm him down in certain situations, okay? Now, I can understand his week in and week out frustration. That man's being bulldogged every week. Everybody's holding him now because he's that good. The way he splits gaps nowadays and beats guys one-on-one is becoming ridiculous in only his second year. So what do you do? Hey, it's a game of cheats. Guys try to find ways to cheat to slow him down. And we can see on the game film every time they go to a replay how he's being bulldogged and held. And so he's got to understand you cannot let your emotions get the best of you, because even if you're right, you're going to be wrong in the eyes of the refs when you do something dumb like take a swing at somebody or so on and so forth. So that part of his game still has to evolve and mature a little bit. He's a phenomenal talent, no question about that. He's already making a name for himself around the National Football League. But he's got to get to this point where he cannot allow the little things that the refs don't see become big obstacles in terms of him hurting the team somewhere down the road.
I think that the last 2 weeks is a great learning point for a young player like Jalen Carter. He had an unsportsmanlike against Pittsburgh. We all seen that, where he slaps the guy. Or maybe that was even the week before. He had one last week again. And then he watched C.J. Gardner-Johnson get 2 and get tossed out of the game last week. Listen, the only way that you can become a leader is if you're productive. Guys don't follow other players that aren't productive. you don't have a voice in the huddle. You don't have a voice in the locker room if you're not productive. So him stepping into that leadership role, I don't think anybody designates somebody on the team as a leader. What designates a player as a leader is their productivity on the field, because people want to follow players that make plays great players, because not only do they aspire to do what they're doing, but they want to know, hey, what it is that you're doing, that you're tearing it up like that. So, but I think the last 3 weeks, I think are a great learning curve for him and a great learning curve for the entire defense to understand how important it is not to be getting these dumb penalties. The Eagles had 10 penalties last week for 91 yards. They almost had a whole football field worth of penalties last week in that game. You can't win football games that way. See, these are little small things that people don't pay attention to that are big deals in the game. You can talk about Washington running roughshod up and down the field in the second half, but you also got to take into consideration the penalties, the lack of the offense's abilities to convert third downs. They're 1 for 9, like I said earlier, on third down conversions. Kenny Pickett, only completed 6 of 13 passes in the second half. These things, these little small things are the little details that define whether you win a football game or not. So listen, I'm not worried about Jalen Carter. I'm not worried about C.J. Gardner-Johnson, because you know what? I think that the good thing was this happened now. You don't want to get into the playoffs and have, these things that have been going on with these two players to transpire during the playoffs, because 15 yards anytime is a big deal. But 15 yards in a playoff game where every single play matters, each and every play could be the difference between you winning and losing a football game. So I think that the message has been sent, not only by, what the referees, have penalized them with, but what Nick Sirianni has expressed to them this week about the importance of being smart. Don't want to take away your aggression. Want you to be who you are. Play with that. There's no problem with that. But you can't hurt the team being selfish by doing things, because it makes you feel better, but you're penalizing the team. They just got to understand that. There's just no getting around the fact that they can't keep playing that way and hurting themselves. And I want people to understand too, Mark, because I talked about it in my podcast last week. C.J. Gardner-Johnson did not get ejected last week for talking trash, okay? Nobody talked more trash when they played than I did. Nobody talked more trash, than BG does. But BG would be 5 to 10 yards away from somebody just chirping. I mean, we've all seen the video of Fletcher Cox, trying to calm him down. You know what I'm saying? He got ejected for taunting. Taunting means that you're in another player's face and you're giving him the business over and over and over again. Okay? There's a rule. 15 yards, unsportsmanlike for taunting. That's the rule. And he didn't just get tossed one, bam, bam, 1, 2. He got the first one. And I promise you, the head referee said, all right, number 8, enough is enough. Back it off, dial it back. And instead of him being 10 to 5 yards away, talking all the trash he wanted to talk, he had to get up in the guy's face. And once you do that, now you put yourself in a situation where those refs don't have any other choice but to throw the flag. So understand, he didn't get tossed for talking trash. He got tossed for taunting. And that can't happen. He can still talk all the trash he wants. If that's what he needs to get him going, D-Gun, talk it.
Yeah.
Just be 5 to 10 yards away from the guys you're talking trash to. Because if you get in his face, you know what's coming.
You're escalating the situation.
And I don't want him to dial it back in any shape, fashion, or form other than stay away from the guy and talk your trash. Don't get up in his face because you're asking for trouble.
Just so we're on the same page, though, if another player does remove his helmet, that guy should have some kind of penalty too, right?
No, listen, there's no doubt about it. I'm not saying that the referee was right. It should have been offsetting penalties. But obviously there was something that transpired that had been going on for a while, and maybe the ref had already warned him to let it go. And he said something that was very overly egregious, and the ref was like, no, You've been doing this for a while. I'm not even. You've been antagonizing this guy, and you've been taunting this guy for 5 or 6 plays, and I've told you to reel it in. Okay, I know he knocked your helmet off, but you taunted him and you caused that. You incited that situation. So that's why that happened.
Fair enough. All right, when we come back in our final segment, we have a lot to get to. One, first and foremost, I hope everyone is following the Seth Joyner Show on social media, following Seth Joyner in general on social media. Make sure you're hitting like and subscribe on the Seth Joyner Show YouTube channel. Make sure you're also hitting that little bell for the notifications so you know when we're getting underway, obviously. We're going to talk about that and why that's so important. We're also going to pay tribute to a Philadelphia Eagles legend. And we'll also give you our official predictions for Eagles Cowboys today. That's when we return on the betPARX pregame show presented by Lehocky. The beer garden here at Parx Casino. Enjoy a Stein and take in a game.
It's the most wonderful time with the kids jingle. Be of good cheer. It's the most wonderful.
Whether your phone's broken or old, we've got you. With Verizon, anyone can trade in any phone, any condition. And get iPhone 16 Pro with Apple Intelligence on us. And iPad and Apple Watch Series 10, all 3 on us. That's up to $2,000 in value, only on Verizon.
Hello? At Revolution X, we know that fortunes are made in times of uncertainty. Are you selling your investment real estate? Are you interested in deferring your tax with a 1031 exchange? At RevX, we're experts in 1031 exchange planning and the use of passive real estate options using DSTs. Not in the midst of an exchange and want to invest in real estate but don't know where to start? Revolution X has institutional grade real estate options for any size investor right now. Set up a consultation at RevXWealth.com. RevX, defer the tax, maximize the gain.
Pride, passion, and persistence. These are the values that drive us all at Ron Jaworski Golf. We strive to deliver outstanding conditions as well as playability for golfers of all ages and abilities. Our championship golf courses offer a variety of challenges from a link-style walk along the river to an escape into the pines and everything in between. My team at Ron Jaworski Golf is committed to delivering memorable experiences every single day. See all we do at ronjaworskigolf.com.
Most people don't know how to get the care they need. The experts at Stay at Home Care can help. Before choosing a caregiver or family member for your care, you need to apply for the home care program. The application process can be complicated. Stay at Home Care can help you navigate through every step. Once approved, your caregiver or family member will receive guaranteed weekly pay, a variety of medical benefits options, paid holidays, paid vacation, and overtime pay. Call Stay at Home Care, here to help every step of the way.
This upcoming segment is brought to you by Verizon. It is unfortunate. It's with heavy hearts that we do a show this week, ladies and gentlemen. We all knew Bill Berge, Seth, of course, Derrick Gunn, of course, knew him. I had the chance to do more than a handful of events with Bill Berge over the years, and he was just so fantastic with every fan that came across his way, taking the extra second, not just to sign an autograph, but have a conversation. And it was a very moving thing to see him talk to troops, talk to service men and women of our country, and the time he would give them. That's what I remember, aside from the tenacious player that he was on the football field. And Seth, I know you got to know him. What does number 59 have to say about number 66? Who passed away at the age of 79 on Wednesday after a battle with cancer?
Well, you know, it was an honor to follow in the footsteps of, you know, the past great linebackers, you know, having met Bill and spent a lot of time, you know, around Bill. And he was always so gracious and always, you know, so complimentary. Every time I would see him, he would say, "Now that's a linebacker there," you know. And I'm like, Bill, you know that, you know, you're one of the greatest linebackers ever played in Philadelphia Eagles history. He was like, "Yeah, but that's a linebacker there." I mean, I'm gonna miss seeing the dude, man, because I mean, I would see him at golf tournaments at least 3 or 4 times a year. You know, gonna miss him. Condolences to the family.
And Gunnar, you worked with him for a number of years as well.
Yeah, when we started Comcast Sportsnet, I was one of the original hires, and Bill was one of the first guys that they used on the set, both in the studio and on the postgame shows as well. And, growing up an avid football fan, it was a great honor just to come to this city and meet the legendary Bill Berge. And you find out he's the most down-to-earth individual you could ever meet. And he would always come over to my desk, Gunner, what do you got today? And we would talk more about life and family more so than football. And I always appreciated about him. He walked around the office like he knew everybody and treated everybody the same, and he made you feel just so comfortable around him. He was as much a fan of us and what we were doing as we were of what he accomplished as a professional football player.
I think it really says a lot about someone when they understand their position, like their station, not just in the world, but in a city. And in the city of Philadelphia, where a lot of athletes become deities, and not just that, but also members of our family and representatives of our city. Bill Berge was a great representative of the city of Philadelphia. So to his family in particular, and his Eagles family, our hearts go out to you. You are in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you, Bill Berge, 79 years old, passed away Wednesday after a battle with cancer. Looking at this game, we know that Bill Berge would love to see the Philadelphia Eagles be able to come away with a victory over this Dallas Cowboys team, because as anybody knows, whether you start your career in Cincinnati and then come to Philly, eventually when you get here, you got to know you must hate the Cowboys. When it comes to this Eagles game today, gentlemen, who are you banking on for our Mid-Penn Bank player to bank on? Who are you banking on that will perform at a high level to be able to take it to the Cowboys today? Gunner, I'll ask you first.
Man, you would ask me.
I'll go if you ain't ready.
I'm gonna have to say Kenny Pickett. As this team goes Kenny Pickett. He will set the tone for what this team was able to do. Now, if it goes back, and it still blows my mind, when he entered the game last week, he stepped under center and went 3 for 3 right out of the bat, hits A.J. for the touchdown. I'm thinking this man's about to put up at least 250 yards in the game. All of a sudden, he didn't play bad, but the numbers were just bland. You can't do that in a game like this today, because if you get in that rut, it's going to be a long day for your team today. You cannot allow this game. You cannot allow the Cowboys to think they have a chance of winning this game in the fourth quarter. I don't care how many games they've won in the last 5 games. They're still an inferior opponent. You have enough talent around you. Your coaching staff, Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni, have had all week to figure out how to attack this porous Dallas Cowboys defense. You should have a measure of success against the Cowboys. I got to go with Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett, Derrick Gunn. Who's on the tip of your tongue?
You know what? I'm going along with him, but, I'm going to add a little extra to what you said. His numbers were downright terrible. I'm sorry. I mean, after he got past that first series, he just went downhill from there. And, I mean, the numbers bear it out. And what you really have to do is you really got to go inside the numbers and kind of, okay, what did he pass for in the first half? 84 yards in the first half. What did he wind up the day with? 143. He got sacked 3 times, minus 25 yards. Well, my goodness. You mean to tell me he only threw for 34 yards in the first half on 6 of 13 passes? That was worse than bad. That was just awful. But when the defense gave up the kind of points that they gave up, now all of a sudden the focus begins to shift over there. I'm going with Kenny Pickett because if he doesn't play well, I don't think the offense has an opportunity to play well.
No.
He's got to play well, which is going to mean that Saquon is going to be able to do what he does because Kenny Pickett's able to manage the game in a much better way this week and be able to take some of the pressure off the defense, by converting some third downs. 3 of 16 overall, 1 of 9 in the second half. You can't keep your defense on the field that long. And, to add injury to insult, you got the special teams, the kick return just giving up the ghost against them last week. I think the average starting spot was like the 43-yard line, on kickoffs. We couldn't kick it to the end zone. We weren't covering worth a damn, so that's got to improve as well. But I think that at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Kenny Pickett's ability, to manage this game today in the most efficient way possible in order for the Eagles to win.
I will quickly add this about your summation about Kenny Pickett, because even though his numbers were pedestrian-like, when he had to, he put a rope on the money.
I agree.
He put a rope right where it was supposed to be. The receiver dropped the ball. Plain and simple. I don't expect Kenny to have wow numbers today. I do expect him to have efficient numbers today, enough to get this team over the hump.
The short passing game.
Yes.
Let's figure out a plan to get the ball out of his hands quickly, okay? and stay ahead of the sticks. If we can stay ahead of the sticks, now you can begin to mix Saquon in, and what he does. You give him a better chance. Now you get yourself in third and short situations where defenses have to play you differently. They can't blitz you because you're third and 10 plus. They got to realize that, man, it's third down, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. And my goodness, they had to have worked on the tush push as well, because there were 2 fourth down situations. One, they kicked the field goal. The other one, they punted last week. That's so un-Nick Sirianni, like, I don't know what to say. But they've got to get to a point when they get in those situations, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, go to your tush push. I don't care if you got to put an extra lineman in the backfield and have him push. Go to your tush push.
The person that has to play almost mistake-free football today is obviously Kenny Pickett. There can't be any more of a drop-off from Jalen Hurts to a backup quarterback in a game than what we're already going to be witnessing, going from a quarterback like Jalen Hurts to Kenny Pickett. So interceptions, no. Protecting the football, fumbles, all that. If you're going to run with it, make sure you're protecting that football. Obviously, Kenny Pickett. But the player I'm going to be really banking on is also a player that I expect to bring it in today's game. Saquon Barkley certainly is a name we could throw out there, and we have many times. You can also talk about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But for me, without having Nakobe Dean as a linebacker in this game and a drop-off there as well, it's even more of a reason to believe in Jalen Carter stepping up and just wreaking havoc. I want Jalen Carter to look at Cooper Rush in this game and say, having a nice little run there in 5 games? 4 out of your last 5 games? Passer rating north of 100? That's adorable. Not on my watch. And have that go on today with Jalen Carter dominating the line of scrimmage. That's what I want to see, and that's the player I'm banking on today. Before we get into our official predictions for today's Eagles-Cowboys game, I do want to make sure that we have all you guys following Seth Joyner on all social media platforms for incredible giveaways. We got a football, we got a helmet, and we also have a jersey we want to give it away as well.
Yes, we do. We'll continue to give away the signed mini helmet and the football jerseys until the Eagles are either win or out of the playoffs. We got the Brandon Graham jerseys, the last jersey that we're going to give away this year. We'll put the information up for that this week on my social media, and we'll pick the person that wins it probably right around Thursday or Friday of next week.
There you go. All right, it's come that time in the show. I'll take the first one on this. I don't see this being, unfortunately, an easy game. I see the Eagles winning this game. I think it's one that we're unfortunately going to have to sweat out. I think this is more on the defensive side of things, where the defense is the star of the show. But I do see the Philadelphia Eagles winning this game today 20-17 over the Dallas Cowboys. It's going to be getting a little hot in that green room while we're watching this game. Gunner, I'll go to you next.
One thing, we barely touched on special teams today, but I did not like the kickoff, the one iota last week from the Eagles. Both teams had problems kicking off the football.
Absolutely.
Keep the ball away from Kevontae Turpin. Keep the ball away from him. He's averaging almost 35 yards to kickoff. He's taking one of the house 99 yards this year. You talk about speed. If he finds a seam, you will not catch him from behind. But even though Jalen's down, even though Nakobe Dean is down, this Eagles team still has enough. Dallas has no quarterback and no CeeDee Lamb. 24-17 Eagles.
24-17 Philadelphia Eagles.
I went to this week believing that Jalen's concussion issue wasn't that serious, that he'd be back this week. So when I made my prediction this week on my TV show, I had the Eagles winning 28-13. Now, Jalen's not playing. Nakobe Dean's not playing. Guess what? The Eagles still win 28-13.
A great slight to the Dallas Cowboys, and appropriate, if I may say so.
I will add this also. Earlier in the week, when I was nitpicking, just trying to get some backdoor information about Jalen, they said the best thing about his concussion situation was he did not get knocked out. That's always a good sign if a player doesn't get knocked out, about the possibility of returning. Then you dig a little bit deeper, you find out, but prior to Jalen, the Eagles had 8 players this season with concussions. Only 3 of them returned the following week. So the NFL has become overly cautious in terms of returning these players with these concussions. A lot of people saying it's rigged. They're keeping key players out of games to balance, to balance the game and to balance the score out. I'd rather always err on the side of caution more so than just, we saw what happened with Tua. Look how many times they let him come back, and look how many concussions he's had over the last couple of years. So as much as we wanted to see Jalen play in this game to put the finishing touches on Dallas, I like the fact that the Eagles are proceeding with caution with him because there's a much bigger game to play in a couple of weeks.
And D-Gun, I don't mind that. What my problem was with Jalen last week was the process of how they went about it.
Right.
Because the normal process is you come off the field, they buzz, hey, number one, we need to take a look at him. The first thing they do is they take your helmet away because they don't want you to come out of the blue tent, grab your helmet, and put yourself back in the game.
Right.
Okay? So they took his helmet away. He goes in the blue tent. He comes out of the blue tent. He's got his helmet on, strapped up, standing there, loosening up. Looks like he's coming back in the game. And then somebody comes out of nowhere, taps him on the shoulder. Hey, we need to take you to the locker room.
Yeah.
So you take him to the locker room, and a quarter and a half, almost 2 quarters go by before a decision comes down. It does not take that long for them to determine whether you're able to come back or not.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing that and it didn't look that bad. Now, I'm not a doctor. I've played. I've had concussions. Some of them didn't know they were concussions because back in the day they used to call it, you just got your bell rung. Some more severe than others. Some, okay, I could kind of shake it off, still have my wits about me and go on and play. Others, throughout the week, light sensitivity, sound sensitivity, all of those symptoms, it was worse. So I'm not saying that, it wasn't bad. It just didn't look as bad, to me as it wound up being, and I didn't like the process, okay? Because the normal process is once you go into the blue tent, if further tests need to be done, they keep the helmet away and they take you straight to the locker room. They don't present the opportunity because even Pam Oliver said, well, it looks like, he's coming back in the game. He's got his helmet on and he's loosening up. That's just a bad look for the NFL for them to allow that to happen. And it makes people wonder what the heck actually really happened.
No, absolutely. All right, we got an Eagles-Cowboys game coming up in just a couple of minutes. We'll be here to break it all down for the betPARX post-game show presented by Lehocky right here from Parx Casino, just 20 minutes north of Philadelphia. We got 3 for 3, folks. All of us picking the birds.
There you go.
Go figure.
Come on, Flybird.